Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guests, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher. It's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight we are going to be talking about where are we going, how are we expanding, how are we evolving, and what is coming up in the forefront. Are humans now going to be able to see, think, feel, engage, and even create a different world? What is that all about? How can it happen? For many decades, we've been living in a kind of a funk, so to speak. We've been stuck. It's been post-war. It's been survival. It's been a lot of disasters and a lot of times in which people said, I don't know if I can breathe in another day. What if there's a possibility that what we will be going to will start eliminating or perhaps maybe evolving, or maybe even we won't even know the word war. Maybe we won't know survival. Maybe we will know joy. Maybe we will know nourishing. Perhaps we will even know what is unconditional love. Because at this point, many people are saying, oh, yes, I have that. And then they turn around and in their next breath, whoops, I guess it went out the door. Maybe in the year 2025, we're truly about being on the bridge, so to speak. We are the bridge between the two worlds. And we are on this bridge for a specific purpose, an extended period of time, and it's almost as if the frequencies have to settle into our being. You can't always leap from one to the other. It'll be a little bit disheveling, don't you think? Perhaps what we're talking about is how can we resonate with what we are letting go, changing, and co-creating at the same time. This is what was going on now in our lives. Perhaps. Today my guest is Cynthia Rivard. Her book is Hope for a New Era, Turning the Tide, Love and Leadership Through Turbulent Times. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so glad to have you because don't you think we truly are on this bridge, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. Talk about turbulent times. Human history has never seen such turbulence, but it's because we are on the brink of this new era that I'm so excited to talk about. It can feel very despondent right now. Like there's so much chaos in the world, and it's so hard for any one of us to feel like we can help it. You know, if you have compassion for others and you see all of this suffering and mess going on and what's going on with the planet, it's very hard to have hope. But that's what the book is about, hope for a new era, as well as how we create that hope and how we create that new era that we are ready for now.
I almost liken it to the point when, when you start cleaning out your house and moving things out, and you're like, you go into your closet and you say, I'm going to go get my blue sweater, but my blue sweater isn't there anymore. And then you go out and you buy another blue sweater because that's what you want. It was a blue sweater. So it's the kind of ideas that we're letting go, we're turning over some of our energy. What was in the past? What is in the present? What would we like to see? And it's all kind of in this, I call it in this like a glass kind of ball with all of this glitter in there, and everything's kind of bouncing around. It hasn't quite found its own sense of new order. Don't you think that's what hope is about? It's the new order?
Well, I like to define hope as a vision that we believe in, the faith of something better, and that we can create it. But then it's faith in action. When you start taking action rather than being overwhelmed with the chaos, but start taking just little baby steps to make something better, to serve someone else, to make an impact in somebody else's life, it breeds hope. It's how we create hope and how together we create a better world. The one thing I'd love to point out, I don't know if most of your audience is familiar with the concept, the new earth or paradise on earth. There's this concept throughout all of the world's religions that has been talked about and longed for, this beautiful chapter for humanity that is like this vision on the hill that we wonder if we'll ever get to. And it's available to us now, but the misconception is God's not going to hand it to us. We have to co-create it. And you wonder how that can be when there's so much chaos and hate and heaviness in the world. But the frequencies are shifting. And part of the chaos is from the old, as you referred to, bubbling up and dissipating, those old heavy energies from eons of, human life on this planet, and the heaviness of the dense, dark emotions that have gone on with the hate and the greed and the fear and the anger. Those heavy emotions we know as being very low frequency, and they get trapped in, they were trapped in the earth, and they get trapped in our atmosphere. And with the frequency expansion that's going on now and the raising of the frequencies, they're starting to dissipate. But it is feeling like more turbulence now and more angst and fear as we go through this period than ever before. But it will get better. And we need to start taking action to make it better.
You also talk in your book about taking responsibility for past actions and devastation. And I really think about it, if we look at the past several decades, it's been a lot of consumption and needs. I need it, I have to have it, it's because. In consumption, more is bigger, better. See bigger plates, bigger grocery things, bigger houses, bigger lives, worlds, kids, whatever it might be. We've been a very consumptive and needy type of people. And perhaps maybe that is also too shifting, perhaps.
I think it will. I don't know that it is now, but I do definitely know that it will, because that's not where we find a happiness, right? And people that think they do just keep going back to the well for more things because they haven't found it yet through the materialism. And there's nothing wrong with wealth, but the energy has to flow. We need to share it instead of hoarding and not taking care of our fellow humans.
So many times I've said on the show before, I said, when you go to a restaurant and you order your meal and you always leave it a go box, I'm going, this has to stop. These go boxes, the styrofoam doesn't belong in the environment. I don't need to take it home. I'm not going to eat it. I'm probably going to throw it away anyway. Excess in the world. And I think, if the restaurant, if they had an option that said, would you like to eat half of your meal first? And if you don't finish it, we'll be happy to box it up and share it with someone else. And it's sort of so different in the paradigm, the shift of thinking. That's my normal thinking. So eventually we'll start to come to a new normal of thinking a different way. That's how we're progressing, right?
Yes. Outside of the box, the behaviors, the systems, the habits that we've had, are they serving us? And if they don't, it's okay to let go of them and create something new and something better that better serves humanity well into the future, that nurtures and serves the planet. I would say the vast majority of the systems we have in place now don't serve us and need completely rebuilt. But what we've done to the planet is probably the most concerning issue of the moment, because we're working hard at extincting ourselves.
Yeah, I live in the city of New Orleans, and I think about it after hurricanes and everything. There were people that came here to try to, quote, help rebuild. But what they did is they brought their ideas, their ways of working, their tools into our area, and they tried to make it work and left us here with this whatever. And then either they stayed around for a little while and then left, or else they left immediately. And we were left with them inserting themselves in a paradigm that it didn't work. The houses fell apart. They used the wrong wood. They didn't know anything about sealing or not sealing a home. We don't have homes that are sealed, so to speak. All of these different concepts. And we think about it. These stories that we tell, the stories that we propagate on others to be able to create a kind of collective belief is generally not where we're going. Perhaps where we're going is actually in reverse, where it's less about beliefs, it's less about dogma, it's less about right and wrong, and it's more about feeling into the energy sense. I mean, I cannot wait until the day that there's so much less conversation. Just recently, I'd gone to a family gathering, and oh gosh, everybody was, I said they all look like they're ostriches just trying to be seen, They kept sticking their heads in, trying to profess. And I kind of just sat there and just observed them going, I just feel so much lighter in myself. That wasn't my conversation. So I think if we start seeing little smatters of this around in our daily life, we can say, oh, is that what perhaps we may evolve to? Yes?
Absolutely. I think it takes, first of all, everyone learning how to be open to new paradigms and perspectives. And it doesn't mean you have to adopt them, but sit with it and just see if it rings true, because no one person has all the answers, and everyone is fighting so hard to hang on to their old beliefs and dogma and whatever they learned in childhood to be right. And if everyone could just ask what if and sit with it, their inner knowing will guide them and help them find the truth and the new and innovative ways that we can create together a better world. But we have to be open to change, and that's very hard. It's against our instinctual programming, but that doesn't mean, because we have the power of choice, right? We have free choice. We can always choose differently. We don't have to hang on to our old habits just because they're comfortable.
Right. Also, too, you share in the book, you talk about each person raised their own consciousness and experience transcendent joy. Let's talk about the word joy for a minute. People think this, I kind of equalize it with the word healing. People think that their body's going to work 100%. They're all going to look like they're 20 years old. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. And when they're 90 years old, they could still climb the top of the mountain. This is a large population. There may be a smattering that may have, but if you're constantly in quest of that outcome, then perhaps you may be missing everything along the journey. The journey is more about our life. The outcome is about something you have stuck up on the wall on your vision board, so to speak, But if you think of healing, right, but if you think of healing can be happen in a moment. Healing is all that your heart and your soul can breathe. That's all that means. It doesn't mean a body of perfection. It doesn't mean that you won't have challenges. It doesn't mean that the life that you have is different from the next person. Because I think that really when we talk about where are we going, everybody thinks we should all be wearing white, have Birkenstocks, and we'll all be eating out of the same garden, so to speak, But that's very important to understand, because people get very disappointed and say that will never happen, and then they continue along with their bad habits. The idea is, how do you progress along the bridge within the similar paradigm to be able to slowly evolve these small changes. That is perhaps the human lifetime, right?
Right. I think the way and what happens when we, first raise our frequency, but then work toward, as we connect with our inner wisdom or higher self, work toward raising our consciousness, I think some of those paradigms and the attachment to old outcomes, the things that we can be so attached to right now and put relevance and importance in, that will fall away in time because of the raised consciousness and a turning back to what's really important. Connecting with Mother Earth, as an example, a very big, important example, given what we're doing to the planet. Serving each other, serving and helping all of God's creations. This is what brings fulfillment and happiness and joy. But that doesn't mean there won't be disappointments or challenges. I think it means when those things happen, the outcome is we're less attached and we can move past it more quickly. If you're in resonance with joy, it doesn't mean you never experience disappointment or a little irritation now and then, because we're emotional beings. We will always have a swing in emotions, but it means those higher vibration emotions, the really wonderful ones we want to hold on to, we can experience them more often and hold them for longer periods. And the dips of emotion, when we have those little hiccups or bumps in the road, the dips aren't as deep. Does that make sense? There's still a swing, but the dips don't go as deeply as they do now.
Yeah, I also think about the time when you shared in your book, you said responsibility to protect the planet and human life first. I did several shows on animal ethics, and we talked about it. And some people said, oh, I don't want to know about animal ethics. I said, did you ever know that the humans are in the animal kingdom? And they're going, oh, but we're so much better than that. Or sometimes, as I work with patients at end of life, they will say, oh, I wish I was a bird. Their life is so easy. Look at them. They just fly around. And you think about that and you say, how do you know that that bird does not have consciousness? It's because you chose to believe that, you see. Or it's because that's what our outcomes have shown us. So we are still living a very filtered and limited human story because we're just going by the dogma in which our mind can create. So the idea is that all within perhaps maybe the animal kingdom, what does that include? Everything down from a starfish or a fish all the way up to whales or all the way up to tigers and humans? What is to say that anyone is any different from anything else? It's just our human limitation that we have put upon it. So everything that we're trying to evolve, change, expand, create, whatever, we have to understand and realize that it is our mind that is doing this. Our filter, the way in which we perceive things, is how we are notating, how we are classifying and validating the world around us. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, everything is filtered through our perspectives and existing paradigms. And there's always another perspective to look at something. So that's a great way to work on opening yourself up. Well, what other perspective might there be about this challenging situation? But we're always filtering. It's just our nature.
Yeah, because it really comes from our past experiences. We only know, people are in this time where they say, show me. I have to know it. Show me in a book. Show me it. Where did it come up before? Give it to me in hard fact kind of idea. We're always that type people that we have to see it with all of our senses to actually know it's real. So when we talk about hope, when we talk about a new era, it's something that is not conceptually out there and validated by all of our senses and how it should appear. Perhaps that it will be the next phase of expansion or the next wave of energy that will come into the earth, and we will all be then on the next level, eventually kind of slowly stepping towards the bridge, off the bridge, correct?
Well, the thing is to see it in the 3D, which is, I think, what you were getting at, because we want to believe it, we have to see it. And the idea of hope is you have faith in something you can't see yet that we're moving toward and taking action to create. We won't see it with our eyes. I mean, we can experience, we can raise our frequency and raise our consciousness and experience joy as an individual, but to experience what the new era will become in the 3D world, we have to co-create that with divinity. And each and every one of us is connected to a higher consciousness, our own personal inner wisdom or higher self that's there to guide us on our unique path and to our unique purpose. And when we tap into that, we can take the aligned actions that we're meant to be taking through this transitional time to help co-create with divinity this beautiful new era. But it's not going to just be handed to us. We have to take the actions to create it. So it's going to be a while before we really can look around and recognize that we're there, because we have to create it. And we have a lot of broken systems right now that need to be reimagined. And, we'll need a lot of brilliant minds involved and taking action, following their guidance, taking action to do that. But in the meantime, we can experience transcendent joy. It's here. You don't need anything on the outside to happen to reach that point.
Let's also talk about the idea of to protect our environment. You say it's not convenient or inexpensive. Perhaps the idea, too, is that the word value is now expanding in its conceptual idea. What is value all about? And I think many people think that value, it has to be this, they have conjured up a story of what value is. It has to have value to me, or else I'm not going to bother with it individually. In other words, if I'm going to go out to work, I'm going to get paid a certain amount of money, and then I'm going to be able to go out and get all my little toys or whatever I might need. So it has to have value. And so many times, when we get into our sunset years, people will say, what is your life about? And they'll say, but I didn't do anything in my life. It had no value. And I'm going, what is true value all about to you? What does that mean? Well, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I could have gone to school. I didn't do that. I didn't have the right job. My kids weren't this, that, or the other. And we have a misplaced sense of value, perhaps?
I think, the word that comes to me that I use often is purpose. What is your purpose? How are you providing value to the world, right? And our purpose is always being of service in some way to others, but it can vary vastly, and it could be just to one person. It could be to thousands. But if you're living your purpose, following, your inspired nudges, your inner guidance, if you're living your purpose, you'll have that fulfillment, whether you've served one in a meaningful way or many. You'll find that fulfillment. But I think the other struggle we have when we're talking about the environment is not trying to convince people the value of a particular action or not taking a particular action. It's a matter of the timing And the desire for immediate gratification, what's in front of me now, is this convenient? Is this the cheapest route? Versus, is this going to protect the planet and get us to that golden future? The long-term goal is very hard to hang, in front of people as that carrot versus the short-term, but I want to do this now. So it's learning to put off the immediate gratification for the long-term beautification of the planet and saving the planet that we need to do. Where's the real value? If you look at the long term, the value is to save the planet and save humanity.
I think also, too, the idea, and it reflects back here again in New Orleans. I always like to tell stories because they help bring it to light and people can conceptually connect it. Where we have a lot of issues when it rains because of our drainage system, we're below sea level. And but yet you will see people go out and they will throw stuff on the ground, and they will, that's how you measure Mardi Gras on the end of, Mardi Gras Day is the garbage trucks go up and down the street and how many tons of garbage they pick. That's our success rate.
Wow.
So the idea is that what is the value you put on something? Someone had said to me the other day, I'd gone to their home, and I said, oh, where did all the acorns from this beautiful oak tree go? And they said, oh, my mom just swept them all up yesterday. I said, oh, what'd she do with them? Oh, she just pushed them all into the drainage ditch. And I'm going, but that blocks up the drainage ditch. Couldn't she use them for ground cover underneath the tree? And it would be, and I always think of it like, they're little babies, put it around the tree, and then they'll eventually start sprouting. But the idea is that we perhaps do not have a system that would say, what if we tried this? Did you know that? Did you know you shouldn't put things down the drain and then complain about it flooding later? Maybe did you know that perhaps it's all the same systems? Also, too, people are fishing, and stuff in the Mississippi River, and we say, oh, isn't this awesome? It's so fertile and everything. It was fertile land in the 18 and 1700s. It is not fertile land in the year 2025. It's polluted. So the idea is that perhaps maybe our ideas, concepts, values, and beliefs, we're taking them and extracting them from a different time in life and dragging them forward, thinking they're still relevant. That's definitely a concept, too, that needs to be evaluated, perhaps.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. What was okay, or people didn't know any better when I was growing up, there's a lot of science showing that these things are no longer known to be good for us or good for the planet, but people have developed habits and are holding on to what's convenient versus what will be conducive to a healthy environment in the future. And I think people just aren't seeing the need in front of them if they're not affected by the toxins and the climate change yet. So it makes it easier to ignore because they haven't felt, like we were just talking about, do you see it in the 3D? You can see it in the news cycle, but if you're not seeing it right in front of you, it's easier to ignore and look at what's right in front of you, which could just be, getting your kids to soccer practice and trying to get through your day, and get the bills paid this month. The immediate, we have a survival mechanism that causes us to just get really tunnel vision on our immediate needs or, the immediate crisis in front of us instead of staying focused on the long-term vision and what our behavior now is doing to our future.
It's also about the idea of fear. Let's talk about that word for a minute, because fear really is very, very important in expansion, because it's fear of loss. But if I do that, You mean I can't go back and do the other things that I used to do? Or if I switch and I try something new, what happens if I fail at it? Do I revert to my old ways? And many times, as you and I both know, once you start crossing this bridge, the other side of that bridge is no longer in coherence with our existence. We don't see it, we don't understand it isn't there, and it doesn't show up. So the idea is that many times people are afraid to take the next step because it's sort of like the carpet behind you keeps rolling up and it's no longer there. There's no road. So the idea is that do we have to feel like we are being pushed and shoved by and we're gaining more and more fear as we're being pushed and shoved into something that perhaps we aren't all ready for yet? Maybe.
Well, I think, there's no movement right now, so I'm not sure that people are being pushed and shoved to make changes. But there are, there are climate change advocates that may get certain regulations put through, and people complain about it because it means, I don't know, no plastic bags at the store anymore, or no plastic bottles with their favorite beverages. So there's a change. And those are little inconveniences, not really even a big change. But we are programmed, it's instinctual to fear change. And so it makes sense there will be resistance and blocks. And the best way I really advocate to get around this is those who already recognize a concern to educate yourselves as well as you can, and then share that information in the most helpful and low, non-confrontational manners, because people, they tune out if they feel like their beliefs are being questioned. But eventually, it doesn't mean we can't or we shouldn't talk about it, because our world is at stake. Our very survival is at stake. So these conversations really should be part of every get-together, the office cooler or the family dinner or at the soccer game. It should be coming up everywhere, but not in a pushy manner to try and convince someone that isn't on board yet. It just friendly sharing of information, because eventually they will, they won't be able to ignore the signs, all of the signs that we're seeing of climate change and the damage and how it is sneaking closer to their reality and potentially impacting their lives.
I think true. Also, there are many times of challenge. Challenge, I call, is disasters. It could be a health crisis. It can be disassociation with relatives, families, or friends, or it can be your support system is broken. Those are several examples which I've gone through for decades. I know many times people, we will all talk about it, and we will say, yes, I've been there, and this is how I've evolved from it. And I think sometimes we say, do we challenge ourselves and say, but I want to be back how it was? Let's say if there's a fire over your entire city or whatever, and people want to rebuild it like it was. Well, that's truly not going to happen, because energy can't recreate the same paradigm, the same story, and everything the same. What you can do is say, I would like to create something that will be efficient, it will be nourishing, and it will be something that we can all engage and flourish with. I think that's what we're asking for after a disaster, a crisis, a health crisis. When you look at when people were met with a health crisis, when I'm giving them a diagnosis, it's like you would think they hit the wall and they would just crumble. They don't hear you, they don't know you, they don't even know what you're saying, and they have just literally hit the wall. What do you do then? And then the answer is, how would you like to live the rest of your days? It's not how do we fix you, how do we heal you, how do we create a miracle. It's how would you like to live the rest of your days. And if you can come from that basic understanding, then you find more joy in every breath that you have, perhaps?
I mean, all we can do is move forward. And I think the past, when something breaks down or is broken, it's still there if there were good pieces that we can build on, but there's always the potential of something better. You know, nothing is perfect. So if you can, you know, let go and remember the analogy that, you know, you can't move through that door to that beautiful vision until you let go of what you're holding on to or anchoring to in the past. But we can build something better. And that's hope. That's creating a vision of something better, knowing it won't be perfect out of the gate because you have to tweak and experiment and get input and recreate when things don't work out as you imagined. But that has gone on throughout time. That's how we've evolved and gotten this far. And we don't want to stay here. Our world's a mess. We want something better, which means we can build on anything that might be worth keeping, but we have to look at what's better for humanity and how can we get there and what baby steps can we start taking now to get us there. That's the other thing. When change is really scary, it's because we're looking at something massive, but the best way to move through that fear is by starting to take little baby steps, small actions, not huge ones, until you've worked your way up to it, perhaps. But it has that building effect. You know, we just keep going and building on what we've already done, and before you know it, you have created something beautiful. But you don't start out that way with the big, you know, whatever, the big thing in front of you that you want to create. You can't start with that. You have to just start and tweak the design as you go.
Right. Well, Cynthia, in closing, can we talk about the topic of faith? Because so many times people will say, I'm not into that. I, gave up religion a long time ago. I'm not into that. It just doesn't show up for me. I myself am almost 70, and I remember in the 50s and 60s, it was, the Catholic Church playing the organ, being able to sing the Latin Mass with the priest. I was very entrenched in that at that time. That's what was evolving at that time. And now in the year 2025, post-pandemic, people are saying, God, where was he? What did he do? And they are very disappointed in the concept that they have of God and how it should have played out. Perhaps maybe our idea of what God really is, what faith really is what is going to evolve, because many have been taking it from generation to generation, a story of dogma that they have been holding on to, and they said, that's what it is, that was what the identity is, and they're stuck there. Perhaps?
100%. It's there. So I think I mentioned in the introduction to the book, there is a golden thread throughout all the world's religions, but it's just a small thread of truth. Everything has been understandably distorted over time because it started out, well, we talked about perspectives and filtering. The prophets that the great religion started from, they were very clear prophets or channels in modern vernacular. They were very clear with sharing God's love and God's message, but the people hearing it filtered it with their paradigms and perspectives, and it got passed on by word of mouth for centuries, and then it got written down by men with certain perspectives, and it's just been distorted. And I like to say that you don't have to walk around away from any specific religion or belief if you are focused on, the golden thread really is love your neighbor. You know, that golden rule is in all of the religions. Love your neighbor. That's how we love and honor God. Our great Creator never expected or wanted to be worshipped in any particular way. They want us to know them as a personal relationship through our inner wisdom, know their truth, their love, and love each other. That's how that is our, I wouldn't call it faith, but that is how that's what we're here to do, to serve, to love each other and love and honor the planet. That's it. It's fine if you find community in going to religious services of some kind, but it's not necessary. And I think the best place to commune with the Creator is in nature, in their creations. But it's, I also say in the book, I make a rule not to tell people what to believe, but I encourage them to tap in, because when you go inward and try and hear that inner knowing, that those divine downloads that you get, that's God communicating with you, trying to guide you on your life's path and purpose. And when you start taking action on that, that's how you create hope and a better future. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. I am a big believer in, I grew up going to church as well, and I did not, I became disenfranchised because it just didn't connect. I didn't feel connected. But that's not, you don't have to go anywhere or do anything specific to get that. It's available to us when we just go inward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's truly what we talked about today, Cynthia, is about how much possibility is out there. So what you and I are sharing is a little smattering of possibility. It may not be your possibility, but it may be something that guides you to finding what works for yourself. I think the idea is that we always look for a guru that's going to say, this is the way it's going to be, and you need to follow these steps. And when we get stuck into that limited belief, we have to say, that's limitation of the human mind. We're not going to go there. I choose to find all the possibilities and to see what I can dance with. That's really what the quest of this radio show has always been, reading books, being able to talk to people and say, what are possibilities out there? And isn't it exciting to just let it bounce around in your thoughts for a little while? So today we really did accomplish that, I think, don't you think?
That's fabulous. Yeah, we had a great conversation. I love chatting with you and sharing our thoughts with your listeners. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. Can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work?
Absolutely. Well, the name of my upcoming book is Hope for a New Era, and hopeforanewiera.com is probably the easiest to remember. And the other website is just my name, CynthiaRivard.com.
Very good. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you with us, because many people are saying, I don't know what the perspective holds, but I'm willing to open up. And when you open up, you want to be able to say what's out there to land on. And I think that helps to eliminate some of the fear, perhaps.
I hope so. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more information about Cynthia Rivard, again, the book is Hope for a New Era, Turning the Tide, Love and Leadership Through Turbulent Times. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to her website for more information. And it is about being able to say, we have been living in fear for many decades, perhaps maybe eons. And if we have hope, if we have faith, and we say, what are the possibilities, and how can I just open the door and breathe in some fresh air, some fresh energy, and say, oh, what's coming down the pike? What's next? And I'd love to have a dance with it. Perhaps maybe our existence, perhaps maybe even our day-to-day functioning, perhaps maybe even the story in which we project and co-create will be so much easier. And wouldn't that be the real quest in this decade? Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher. Until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit drjeanettegallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.